Good morning, Shavua Tov. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Our Parsha is Parsha Vayishlach. Perfect. Great. So you can hear that's great. Let's talk about our Parsha, because our Parsha is very special. There are quite a few stories in our Parsha. There's actually one mitzvah in our Parsha, the mitzvah of Gid Hanoshe, which is not to eat one of the parts of the animal. That is, it's called Gid Hanoshe, which is basically a part in the thigh of the animal. And we're not allowed to eat that specific part. It's just one part of the Gid. And that is the Issur. Actually, this Issur was given to us by Mount Sinai. But it's brought here because the story is here. What is the story of Gid Hanoshe, basically? A Gid is basically, it's not a vein. I think it's a tendon. Something like that, if I'm not mistaken, or sinew. So that's the issue of Gid Hanoshe. We are forbidden. We're not allowed to eat this part of the animal. It's a very small part of the animal. It's only in the animals. It's even there's a machlokes between two chachamim if it's the right foot or the left foot, which means when we talk about this issur, when we talk about this command of Hashem not to eat this part of the animal, we're talking about a very specific part. So what is the story behind this part? As we know, Yaakov is moving back to Israel. He's returning to Eretz Israel after spending quite a few years at the house of Lavan, where he married his two wives, where he had 12 children. He had actually 11. And he had 12, including Dinah, and Binyamin was born on the way back. Now, returning to Eretz Israel, he needed to cross the Jordan. And when he crosses the Jordan, he, first of all, takes all of his children, his wives, his possessions. He makes sure that they go safely to the other side. And he returns to collect a few, says pachim ktanim, that's what the Medrash tells us, which are small jars, just a few jars that he left on the other side, but he returns to bring them as well. While he returns, the angel of Esav, the Malach of Esav, appears to him and they start fighting. The Malach of Esav wants to finish Yaakov there and then before he even meets his father, before he returns to Eretz Israel. And they are fighting, and Yaakov was also very strong, so the angel could not beat him. And basically what happened was that at a certain point, the angel gave him a strong hit on the Yerech. Vayiga b'kaf Yerech Yerech, on his thigh, on the thigh of Yaakov. And for that reason, and it says that it caused him a certain wound, and this wound basically is the reason that we don't eat this part in the animal. We don't eat Gid Hanoshe in the animal. This is the original story. This is the reason. And it is interesting because there are many stories about our forefathers having fights, if it was with angels, if it was with kings, if it was so why don't we see that that there's any kind of command regarding their fights? Why only when it talks to when Hashem tells us about Yaakov, that's the only place that we see Hashem commanding us such a thing, not to eat this part of the animal, Gid Hanoshe. And it says, Chachamim teach us that the reason is in the Mefarshim, talking about the Rashban on the Torah. So the Rashban tells us that this is a general miracle. It's not only a technical fight between an angel and Yaakov, but there's something a bit more big to the story. First of all, it's the angel of Esav, and they were fighting basically over who basically should rule the world. And this is why this is something very important. That's why we have this special command. But then why not to make it a better celebration? Why not to make it a bigger celebration? Why not to do something similar to Purim, to Hanukkah, to Pesach? Why do we keep it as a very small mitzvah? This is the only way that we remember the story, the miracle of Yaakov being saved from the angel of Esav. This is the only, and not only he was saved, he was blessed by the angel of Esav. Esav told him that your name from now on will, the angel of Esav told him that your name from now on will be Yisrael and not Yaakov, which is a higher level, a higher name. So why don't we have some kind of Seudah, some kind of day, celebrating the day? Let's celebrate the day or the date, whenever it happened. Why do we keep it to something very, very narrow, very small, as just not eating from the part of the animal that Yaakov was hit? That's the mitzvah. That's the only thing that we do. This is something very general. For example, Leila Seder, right, the night of Pesach. So although it's a miracle that basically Am Yisrael was saved from Egypt, but we basically make a whole thing out of it. We don't only say, well, shech the Pesach, eat the Pesach, or we don't say just eat a matzah. There's a whole night. There's a whole night telling the story of Exodus. The whole night filled with mitzvahs, 4 cups of wine, matzah, Pesach, Moroi. Why don't we have something similar? If this is actually such a great story, such a great thing that happened there and then, why do we keep it to a small detail? And this is basically the concept of the shir. This is the topic of the shir today, divine providence. Divine providence is something that is very important in Jewish life. This is something that we always mention. Well, b'hashgacha pratit, I just made the bus, or I missed the bus, but that's b'hashgacha pratit as well. It's divine providence. What is the meaning of divine providence, and how are we affected by divine providence? Now, in order to understand this concept of hashgacha pratit, we've got to discuss, we've got to talk about the difference between the hashgacha pratit when we talk about the general creation of the world, and the hashgacha pratit over the Jewish nation, over Am Yisrael, because there is a difference, and the difference is connected to the details. So, do the details matter? That's another question. There's a famous story about one person that he emailed a rabbi in his community. He emailed the rabbi in his community and he asked him, why does Hashem care whether I do a mitzvah, I don't do a mitzvah? Why does he care about which way I do the mitzvah, if it's in a hidur, if it's not in a hidur? We're coming now closer to Hanukkah, right? Hanukkah is a special time. Hanukkah is the time where we all do the mitzvah behidur. Because what we could be doing is just one candle every night. Doesn't have to be 2 candles on the second night, 3 candles on the third night, and so on and so on. Could be 1 candle, 1 night, on each night. But nevertheless, we do it behidur. We do a hidur mitzvah. Why does Hashem care about the hidur mitzvah? What's the point there? And this is also a philosophical question. Does Hashem Almighty, does he really interfere? Does he really care about small issues and small matters here in the world? A lot of the scientists came to the conclusion that Hashem exists, and they had to say that. And today it's very obvious that Hashem created the world, and that he does exist because of the order that they can see. There are certain proofs, starting from the proofs that are brought in Hasidus, but even the scientists, in their way, they came to the conclusion that Hashem exists. Today, if you find an atheist, it's not an atheist that is a learned person that really understands, that really knows. Today, it's just an excuse to say that they want to say Yetzer Hara. That's the truth. Because most of the scientists today, they say that Hashem actually exists. But they aren't sure regarding whether he cares about what happens here in the world or not. Whether it matters to him if a person puts on tefillin or not. Whether it matters to Hashem if a person keeps Shabbos or not. Or how much does a person actually honor the Shabbos. But the truth is that the details do matter. The details do matter in a very important way. In a very important way. And as the story about the person that sent this email to the rabbi, and he did not receive a reply. And after a few days, he sent him again another email, and he told him, well, if you don't have an answer to that, tell me you don't have an answer. Why aren't you answering me? Why don't you at least admit that this is a good question? So the rabbi emailed him back, and the rabbi told him, I actually did answer you. I sent you an email with many, many details, many explanations to the fact that Hashem does, the details are important. And when I wrote the email out, I wrote your address. I wrote @Gmail. I left out the dot. I just did @gmail.com without .com. Probably you did not receive my email. This goes and shows you how important the details are. If you miss just one dot, 1 point, trying to send an email, you might not get to the person. It's like that in this world. So for sure, the connection to Hashem has to be very, very specific, has to be in a way that the details do matter till the last detail. This is the way that the rabbi answered him, a very interesting way. But we've got to understand the meaning behind it. Why does actually the details matter to Hashem? So this is a deep concept in Hasidus, where Hasidus says that you can look at Hashem in two ways. You can you can describe Hashem as elevated from the world, higher than the world, unlimited. And therefore, you'll come to the conclusion, as it says in Yehi Chvoid, that we say every day, Ram al kol goyim Hashem. It says in the Yehi Chvoid, let me just get the exact nusach and I'll tell you. But the point there is that the goyim, Ummah Sa'olam, say that Hashem is elevated from the world. He's not interested in interfering in things that happen here. The details don't really matter to him. He doesn't really care about the details. Let's see. Ram al kol goyim Hashem ala shamayim kevoda, which means that Hashem is above all the nations. And where is his honor? Where is his kavod? His kavod is in the shamayim, in spiritual things. Details don't matter to him. Why? Because he's unlimited. He's so great. He created the world. Why would he care about what's happening down here? As Einstein phrased it, he said that he doesn't believe that Hashem plays with dice. Doesn't believe that Hashem plays with dice, which means that the divine providence doesn't really matter. One of the most important things that Hasidus teaches us is that although Hashem is unlimited, although Hashem is higher than the world, but he created the world for a purpose. There's a reason behind what we see. It makes no sense that a person would invest so much effort, or Hashem, it didn't take him that much effort, but create such a perfect creation and leave it with no purpose. Imagine something like that here in the world. A person creates something that doesn't take him no effort, right? Well, for sure when it takes him a lot of effort, but even in a case where a person it doesn't take a lot of powers from him and effort, but he still creates this certain thing. And it's a perfect thing that he created, that he made, that he built. For sure, there's got to be a purpose, a meaning, something to aim for, something that it's a certain goal that it's leading us to. This is why, although Hashem is unlimited, but that's not true way to define the Eibishter. When we want to try and talk about Atzmos Umahus, the highest level that we can say about Hashem, unlimited isn't the right way to describe him. Because something that's unlimited, he is limited to being unlimited. And as we say, that someone that's unlimited, why would he care about details? For sure, he wouldn't care about details. Details mean nothing to him. Details do not enter his world. He's unlimited. But Hashem is truly undefined. In the words of Hasidus, it's called Bli Geder. There is no Geder. There's no way to describe him. He's undefined, which means that he's limited, he's not limited, he's limited and not limited at once. In the times of the Holy Temple, the Beis Hamikdash, they were able to see this. One of the miracles. Most of the miracles that happen in the world are miracles that are unlimited miracles, which means that Hashem doesn't care about the details. Hashem, when he basically caused the oil to last for more than one day, right? Hanukkah, that is not paying attention to the details. It means that I don't care about the details. I don't care about the oil, and I will make sure that oil that's supposed to last for one day should last for 8 days. There was one miracle that was limited and unlimited together. It was in Kodesh HaKadoshim, a limited space. In that limited space, if you would measure the Aron HaBris, something was very weird. Aron HaBris, the ark, the holy ark, that was also a limited size. If you would measure the place in Kodesh HaKadoshim, you would measure it, you would see that Aron HaBris cannot fit inside. But nevertheless, it still was there. This is connecting something limited, which is the measurement of both the ark and the room, Kodesh HaKadoshim, and unlimited together. Unlimited means that if you would try and calculate it, it wouldn't make sense. How can it fit in there? But nevertheless, you see it there. That's the highest miracle possible. So once again, details do matter. And this is the idea of divine providence. We spoke about divine providence at the beginning. And there's divine providence belongs to the entire creation of the world. Hashem sends a bird to kill a fish. He sends this specific bird to kill that specific fish because he cares about those details. Because the world is all for one purpose, the purpose of making it into a home for Hashem. And we need the world to exist, because if not, what are we going to make here? We need the world to be here and to exist. And then after the world exists, after everything is in place and everything is in the right way with Hashem's divine providence, making sure that the fish behave in their way and the animals in their way, the birds in their way, each and every one according to his nature, with the divine providence of Hashem, which is a general providence. It's also a specific private providence to each and every bird, each and every creature in the world. Then we have the divine providence over Bnei Yisrael, over Am Yisrael, because the purpose of creating the world is for Am Yisrael to elevate this world and to bring it to a higher level. Bringing it to a higher level, elevating it, causing it to become a home for Hashem is the idea behind. This is the idea behind the whole creation of the world. And that's why talking about Am Yisrael, so each and every part of Am Yisrael is equal and is under the eye of Hashem, is protected by Hashem. There's no difference between the two. When we're talking about the divine providence of the world in general, each creature, each part of the world has its own connection to Hashem according to what? According to what we call the madrega, the value of that thing. According to the value of a certain part in the world, that's the effort that Hashem puts into that part. Why is that? Because each part in the world has a different value. It's not a purpose for itself. It's to serve Am Yisrael, and it's to serve Am Yisrael, and the world was created bishvil haTorah v'bishvil Yisrael, for Am Yisrael, and therefore for that reason, for that specific reason, each part of the world has a value that connects it to Hashem, right? We cannot compare the value of think about it. Each part of the world has its own value that is civilized by humans is higher than a value that's not, because it's closer to Am Yisrael. But when we talk about Am Yisrael themselves, why are they special? Because Hashem chose them. When you choose something, it's equal. When I choose an object, I want the whole object. When Hashem chose Am Yisrael, when Hashem chose the mitzvahs, you can't do half a mitzvah. That's why it says about the mitzvahs, you can't say, you know what, let's compare the mitzvahs, let's try and evaluate them and see what's worth it to do and what's not. When it comes to a mitzvah, you keep each and every mitzvah. When it comes to a Jew, each part of the Jew is equal, and not only each part of the Jew is equal, but all of the Jews are equal. Because Hashem chose us. And when you choose something, you choose the whole thing. That's the idea of choice, bechira. Where do we see that? There's a very sad stories that happened throughout the Jewish history. And the Maimonides tells us what is the din when something like that happens. Let's say that the Goyim surround Am Yisrael in a certain city, and they say, give us one Jew, and we'll kill him. And if you don't give us that Jew, we're going to kill everyone. What is the din? What do you do in such a case? Logically, you've got to value. You've got to try and say, well, tell yourself simply, if I give one Jew, I save 1,000 Jews. So, of course, the value is that I should give this Jew to the Goyim, and they'll kill him, but I'll save another 1,000 Jews. That's the logic when it comes to a case where there isn't Bechira involved, where Hashem did not choose us. The rest of the world does not exist because Hashem chose them, it's because Hashem created them. They are here to serve a certain purpose, to be a world, right? And in order to be a proper world, they've got to have an existence. But each one has its own value. In such a case, yes, talking about animals, right? So, yes, you would say that this and this animal, the value is more than another animal because it gives me, provides me with milk, right? A cow has more value to me than a cat, for example, because it provides me with milk. A cat has more value than a A dog, for example, because it takes care of mice. A dog has more value than snakes because it chases the snakes or whatever. That's when we talk about the general world. In that case, each part of the world has its own value, and we can decide who's better, what do we need more. But when we talk about a mitzvah, when we talk about the Torah also, person cannot say, I like to learn only this part of the Torah. You aren't supposed to say that. Although you should have a chefetz, which means you've got to have a will. You've got to enjoy learning. That's a big part of it. But saying that this part is better than that part, that's wrong. A mitzvah, talking about a mitzvah, that, you know what, this mitzvah is better than that. You also can't say, for sure, a person can have a mitzvah that he connects to. A lot of people love the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. They like Hanukkah as a celebration of light. It's a very special celebration. So people attend to like this hike very much. For sure, you can have what's called, in the words of the Gemara, which means, what did your father keep the most? What was he very careful about? Because he has what's called a geschmack in that thing, in that mitzvah. But you're not saying that the value of this mitzvah is more than that. And also when it comes to a Jew, we cannot say that one Jew's value is more than the other. That is why the Maimonides says that in a case where the Goyim are surrounding a city of Am Yisrael and telling them, give us one Jew, and if not, we'll kill all of your city, you are not allowed to give that Jew or any Jew to the Goyim. For what reason? Because we don't know the value. All of Am Yisrael are equal. Hashem chose each and every one of us, and Hashem wants each and every one of us in the same way. So each individual, each detail is very, very important. This is the conclusion that we learn from this halacha in the Maimonides. Now we can understand why the story of Yaakov and the angel of Esav is remembered by a very small detail. The story of the fight between Yaakov and Esav is basically the angel of Esav, and of course that's Esav, that leads to Esav himself, is the fight over the world. Who is going to rule? Who is going to control the world? Would it be the children of Yaakov or the children of Esav? And we remember the victory by a small detail, to show us and to teach us that each detail matters. Each detail matters, each mitzvah matters, and there's no need to do a whole celebration out of this day, like the night of Pesach, to make it meaningful. According to Judaism, the whole chiddush of Yaakov, what does Yaakov stand for? What does Yaakov represent? Hashem choosing each and every individual, each and every yid. And for that reason, each and every yid is very important. That's why we remember that story by a detail, to show us that Hashem chose Yaakov. And one other detail that's in the story, remember, Yaakov returned. Why did Yaakov return to the other side of the Jordan? After bringing his entire family over with all their possessions, the wife, the children, Yaakov returns to the other side of the Jordan for small pachim ktanim, for small jars. He also cared about the details, and why Hasidus teaches us that these small jars are there. The purpose is to elevate them. Each detail counts. Each detail is important. So this is what we can take from our parsha. What we can take from our parsha is that each part of the Torah is important, each mitzvah is important, and each Jew is also important. Thank you very, very much, and have a Shavua Tov.